Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my channel all about jobs. Today we have with us Mr. Sarwar Borah, who is a very senior communications consultant. And currently he is working with Perfect Relations as a senior consultant. Uh, Basically, Perfect Relations is a unit of Denso AGS Network, which is a very renowned media company. If you are into media or you have been doing anything about media or public relations or journalism, anything, you ought to know about it. So without much ado, I would like to welcome Sarwar sir. How have you been? How is the lockdown taking care of you?
Uh, Thanks a lot, Mirza. It's a pleasure, talking to you. We have known each other for long, and I have really seen you mature from an aspiring communications professional to becoming actually a seasoned communications professional. And today you are in a specific specialized segment of human resource, human resource communication division, which is actually very great. And actually, I really appreciate the effort of you, of this initiative. Through this initiative, actually, we can tell the audience and basically the young generation about different options available in the field of communication, not necessarily journalism or basically event management. There are hundreds of other divisions. Like you are in a specific niche segment relating to communication, but then again, it's into HR. I'm in a different segment, which is neither advertising nor journalism, but it's a mix of everything. So I think it will be great talking to you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, sir. The first question, sir, I would directly like to ask you is, like from your journey from classroom to cubicle, like where did you grow up and what was your field of study when you were in school, and how did this transformation from a student to a professional and a senior consultant right now? So if you could tell us something about your journey, please.
So, Mirza, it's actually, honestly, uh, I have just completed 15 years in this sector. I started my career in 2006, July 31st. I specifically remember the date. I had joined a magazine, a lifestyle magazine called Wedding Affair on July 31st. So, that was in 2006. So I have just completed 15 years. And actually, I could not have expected to actually have a discussion like this at such a during such a milestone of my career. So, referring to your question, I belong to Assam. I did my class 12 from Assam, from a CBSE school. And then I came to study in Delhi. I studied psychology, BA honors psychology from Jamia Millia Islamia. And it was during my graduation days that I got attracted to writing, because initially writing was just a medium to express my thoughts. That's a very difficult age. You are young. You have just come from a small place compared to Delhi. You are all alone. So there's a lot of emotional angst. So initially, writing was just a medium to pour my thoughts. Luckily, I didn't keep my writing restricted to my diary. I actually I gave it for publication to the leading newspaper in Assam, the Assam Tribune. And from there, the journey started. I should say I was fortunate enough that, my articles got published. And that was the big motivation that, because since childhood, and I believe it still is a process. We always look up to journalists. We always look up to somebody who has the capability to write in a newspaper, whose name gets published in the newspaper as a writer. So we consider it to be very respectable, because somewhere you not only portray command over language, but you also portray command over a certain area. So that experience was great. But thereafter, I went through some kind of confusion. I wanted to get into management, but that didn't work out. I did try for I did try to get admission in Jamia's mass communication. That also did not work out. And then 2005-6 was a time when, a lot of American companies, especially in the service sector, was booming. So we know that the BPO and the call center culture had come. So similarly, at that time, another culture had come, that was of content writing, and content writing in terms of, like, foreign, like international websites. They wanted writers, offshore writers, who could write their blogs and could manage the content of the website. So after my graduation, as I was pursuing my master's in psychology, I felt that, I realized that, I am not going to make a career out of psychology. I need to uh, make a career out of journalism. And that is when I started looking for jobs through Naukri.com, and that is how I landed through Naukri.com. I landed my first job in a lifestyle magazine called Wedding Affair. So that is my journey from classroom to cubicle.
So, if I, request you to just traverse down from wedding affairs. After that, it's been a long journey, like 15 years. So, I know you have been working with the Hindustan Times as well, and after that, several other companies. So, my second question was in that similar line only. So, what if, like you were in Jamia, like you came to Delhi, and but there are many people, many students in the say in the rural areas, they want to become a journalist, or they want to become a public relation person, or something to do with media in which they can express their opinions. Now, what it takes in India for a student to become a media professional, be it in journalism, be it in public relations or any other field. Uh, so, like if we ask the qualifications, like what are the branches, the institutes, if we can talk a little bit about that.
Very pertinent question and a very important question, because the problem is that what I feel is that around 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, when people actually started looking beyond management and engineering, mass communication and media as a sector emerged in a big way. That could, offer, that could perhaps train, because this is a skill-based sector, and when we talk of professional courses, there is a certain amount of skill that is involved in it, and there are different sectors. So initially we had management, we had MBA courses, we had engineering, we always had engineering courses. Thereafter, a lot of paramedical courses came, physiotherapy, psychology, clinical psychology. So media also came up in a big way around 15 years ago, when when news channels, private news channels were booming, and a lot of satellite channels were coming up, because when one big sector emerges, a lot of ancillary sectors also grow along with it. So when the TV segment grew, also along with that, the coming of internet, because of the coming of internet, a lot of publications came up, a lot of magazines came up, and then accordingly, a lot of PR agencies came up, because suddenly the whole segment grew. So obviously there was a huge requirement for talent, for resources. But what happened was this, that somewhere, as it is always the case, the ratio between quality institutes that can actually produce quality talent is something that is still debatable in India. And I feel this is where I always, whenever I meet new students, students who are studying communication, I meet them, I always tell them that it's always very important to first deserve before you desire. So there are students who take up mass communication thinking that tomorrow they will end up in a newspaper or in a channel, but they may not necessarily deserve to be there. So the biggest problem is this, that one needs to first identify that, does here, because in institutes, there are so many institutes, they will always like to hire more and more students and get their seats filled and the classrooms filled. But I think it's very important for a student, before getting into this industry, to do some Reiki and understand the challenges that this industry throws at you, and does that individual has that capability to actually able to overcome those challenges and actually excel in that. Because I have seen, because honestly I don't have a qualification in communication, but I feel I was born with the with a talent to be able to think, communicate, strategize how to effectively communicate. And that's how I was able to identify my talent, and accordingly I was able to give shape with hands-on training, because I learned on the job. So this is, first of all, I would like to tell every student, whether they are studying journalism or communication, BJMC, Bachelor of Journalism and Mass Communication, all these courses, I think it's very important to first of all identify, do you really have it to be in the communication sector, number one. Number two, once you're in the communication sector, I think it's very important for the teachers to broadly to help students understand the broad classification of mass communication. That there is a production, there is something called production where you are into, where you're dealing with electronic medium. So you're basically into motion pictures. So that motion picture could be for the web, that could be for mobile, that could be, but essentially it is fiction. Then there is something called reality TV. Then whether it's you're working on TV shows which has to do with reality TV shows. And then comes if then comes a or definitely the biggest aspiration is to become a filmmaker, or you become a documentary maker. So that is one altogether different industry aspect that needs a certain skill set, and also temperament. See, temperament is very important. A journalist has a certain temperament, a PR person has a certain temperament, a filmmaker has a certain temperament. So it is the task of the teacher to first help student understand that what are the different category segments, and then then make the student take his or her own decision whether he or she needs to be in he or she wants to opt for filmmaking, or he or she wants to opt for journalism, or he or she wants to be part of uh, the advertising sector or the communication sector. The communication sector is also very large. And now, last 15 years, the radio industry has come up in a big way. And obviously with the power of social media, so, with the YouTube coming up in a big way. So somebody who may not, who hasn't make it big in TV, if he or she has the talent, can make it big on YouTube. There are a lot of people without any formal qualification making it big on YouTube. So I think it's first of all very important to understand where you want to go, and do you have it in you to go there or not. This is what I would like to first of all suggest. Then comes your next part, that how can you start the journey. So since I was a journalist and then I got into public relations, what all I can suggest is this, that if somebody, because journalism and PR are two sides of the same coin. It's just a matter of it's just a matter of thinking how different, it's just putting it in a different way. Otherwise, at the end of the day, a PR person compliments journalist, a journalist compliments a PR person. So I think if somebody wants to initially take up journalism, I think it's important that he or she should try to first of all identify the papers that are available in his or her area. So there are two papers. So one is that you are targeting a paper which is at a national level. So if you are from, say, West Bengal, so then you could be from Asansol, you could be from any area like Siliguri, New Jalpaiguri. I'm just giving an example. So what is that? There are certain papers that will come to your locality. So these are editions. We call them editions. For example, there will be a Asansol Telegraph edition. There will be so and then there is a national, Telegraph Kolkata is a national edition. So what one should do is that one should first identify the paper, the supplement, where he or she can contribute, where he or she can write. Because first of all, journalism is something where only trained reporters can write. So features is the only section. So I know that, I grew up at a time when there were a lot of supplements for school children. So, I come from Assam. So, Assam Tribune, has a Sunday edition and still has a Sunday edition where they allow, where they invite contributory articles, poems from children. So that was a big, like I knew that, there is once avenue where I can target, where I can go. I don't need to be a trained reporter. I can sit at home and write about something and I can send my article. Similarly, I know that, Telegraph has a school supplement also that
Elegance.
specifically goes. I am not able to recollect the name, but it is not available with the main edition.
Right.
It specifically goes to the students. So that is first. So that is how, if somebody is trying to get into journalism, I think from the school, from the school days only, should identify the section, the paper where they want to write, and should then write something and keep sending it, in the sense email it to the editor, or sometimes the editors are also so nice. One should just walk into their office with their parents and give the article, and sometimes the editors will suggest what are the changes that are needed, and then accordingly they can make the change and resend it. And when it comes out, it becomes a trend. That happened with me. I walked into the Assam Tribune office, I gave my article, it came out, gave me a boost. I wrote the second article, then the third article, and that's how I created my portfolio in the field of journalism. In case of PR, you need to complete your, at least you need to be a student of journalism and mass communication. And what you can do is that if you are living in Delhi or Mumbai or Calcutta, then obviously as part of your 3 years, your graduation curriculum, you need to do 1 or 2 months internship in different agencies, PR agencies, and learn and gradually just understand what is PR and how does it work. Over to you, Mirza.
Right. Thank you so much. That was really valuable, like quite educative for anybody who wants to get into media. This brings me to the third question. Do you think educational institutes in India, they are overrated? Because like what I see is every day, new educational institutes are mushrooming like anything, like when it comes to media. So any professional with say 20 years of experience, 25 years of experience, they're opening a school, a college. Nothing taking away from them, but do you really think that they are adding value to students and they are really making, the 3 years or 5-year course they provide, is it really contributing and creating media professionals or communications professionals at the end of the 3-year or 5-year courses?
So these are a very pertinent question. Now the thing is that India is the open market. We grew up at a time. I did my graduation. I completed my graduation in 2020, 2005. So, that was a time when there was no concept of private universities. There could only be a state university or there could be a central university. You could be a private institute. So MET existed at that time. There were other private institutes, and you would be affiliated. You had to be, as far as I remember, you had to be affiliated to a certain university. That is how the private sector boomed. Initially, there were no private universities. Now we are at an age when there are private universities. So what happens is this, that what I have understood is that there is forever a constant demand, because India being such a largely populated country, there is a constant demand for degrees and qualifications. Now the question is that, the demand is there. But as I said, parents and students have to identify and understand which, and I know that it's very difficult, because somebody whose parent is not from a communications background, and if their children tomorrow wants to come into the field of communication, there should be, I mean, it's very difficult for them to find somebody who will guide them कि आगे जाके किस तरीके के challenges आप face करेंगे, किस तरीके के hardships आप face करेंगे, because see, at the end of the day, a private institute is doing business. They are in the space of, they are edupreneurs. education entrepreneurs. They are there to educate and at the same time make money because of for the services that they are giving. So somewhere they, if they are a business house, at the end of the day, they will only be able to provide according to the investment that they have made. So that's something one has to understand very critically. For example, you cannot compare a private institutes. There are private institutes. There's so many private. I'm not even talking of private universities. There are private institutes offering courses in journalism and mass communication in Delhi. Several of them. Now you cannot compare them with a Symbiosis or a Jamia, because a Jamia has a studio, has an in-house studio. They have the equipments to give the first-hand experience to the students. So a private institute, as I said, is only as good as the amount of plan, as good as how big the plan is, big the plan and the arrangement that they have made. Now, as I said, it is somewhere for the student to understand if I'm going to this university, if they are promising me, like, there will be, like, for example, a student film that I have to make. तो वो जो स्टूडेंट फिल्म मैं बनाऊंगा, वो स्टूडेंट फिल्म में बनाने के लिए मुझे कैमरा इंस्टीट्यूट देगा या इंस्टीट्यूट कहीं से किराए पे लेके मुझे देगा. Will I be taught editing in Adobe Premiere, or will I be taught editing in FCP, Final Cut Pro? So these are certain things. Matlab, I feel that when you are entering, and this is something that 90% of people in India don't do. And this is where the role of career counselor is also very important. India needs to have individual private career counselors. I mean, now we have the concept of clinical psychologists who are coming up to solve psychological problems. But I believe the business of career counselor has to grow, who can guide students on. It's not a matter of which university to choose. The problem is that a lot of private universities tie up with career counselors and tell them that you mold them to take admission in my university. But actually, I think we need independent, unbiased career counselors who can guide students on different experiences, the different end experience that they will have to face when they enter the industry, and the kind of facilities that they need, so that they get trained in that way to be able to face that end experience. And only then they should be able to decide in which, if I'm taking admission in X university, will I get that experience or not? Because see, unlike engineering or a management course, placement is very difficult to provide in a mass communication by a mass communication institute, because at the end of the day, now also we see a lot of TV channels, a lot of media houses have started their own media institutes, because somewhere they know that we have a constant demand for resource. So since we have a constant demand for resource, so why not use our own experienced professionals as teachers and train them, give them the way I learned. I mean, thank God. I mean, I didn't have to go to a private institute, but give them the first-hand experience of how to work, and through that, whatever opportunity comes from whatever opportunity we can give, we will give it to the student. But आप पहले बैच को full placement दे दोगे, दूसरे बैच को full placement दे दोगे, but eventually some people from your organization have to move out. I mean, either your media house needs to be growing कि मैं हर साल एक नया edition launch कर रहा हूँ, मैं हर साल एक नया channel launch कर रहा हूँ कि मुझे हर साल नए लोगों की जरूरत है. पर अगर आप जहाँ पर है अगर वैसे ही है, तो आप हर साल जो बच्चे आपके निकलेंगे, आप सबको तो एब्जॉर्ब नहीं कर सकते हो. तो somewhere it's your question, it's a very pertinent question, but I would say because India is an open market, at the end of the day, it is the self-awareness of the student and the parents that will actually decide that will help them to decide, whether they should take admission in an X university or institute or not.
Thank you so much, sir. That's again very articulately put, because it's always, if you want to become something, we always say that the 5W and 1H, that is something we need to do our research on. Understand why do you want to become something and how you can become. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for, putting it in the right way, in the best possible manner. This brings me to the next question. So, when I was growing and I did my mass communication from a private institute again in Calcutta. Now, in our times, like for example, me and many of my friends, we were influenced by Shah Rukh Khan, frankly speaking. Shah Rukh Khan and uske baad Ayushmann Khurrana. So in those times, people were like Shah Rukh Khan, and then mass communication happened with him. Then Jamia happened. So everybody was like mass communication karenge, and from Jamia Islamia karenge. Obviously, not everybody gets a chance to go there. So where you also, do you think what population or what, how many people out of 10 were dragged into this particular field, communications, media, due to stars, and they just wanted to do it because their influencers, if we talk in today's language, they were a graduate, a mass communication graduate, or they went to this and this college. Is it pertinent? Is it very much relatable in the field of communication as well?
Honestly, I think in India the problem is, as long as you had FTI, Film Television Institute of Pune, Symbiosis, Jamia, or Asian College of Journalism, jab tak it was there, because the entrance was so drilling and hard. You knew that somebody who has the talent, somebody, as I said, who deserves, only makes it to that place. And when you have the talent, even if you are raw, you can very easily be molded into something that can make you good enough to, at least if not Shah Rukh Khan, at least somewhere be near Shah Rukh Khan. If not Ayushmann Khurrana, somewhere be near Ayushmann Khurrana, or if God wills, maybe beyond them, ahead of them. But the issue is, when you study in private university or private institute, somewhere the institute has a certain agenda. And the problem is that in India, parents, I still feel, they are always clueless. कि मतलब हमारे बच्चे को रेडीमेड जॉब मिल जानी चाहिए, बिकॉज पेरेंट ने नौकरी करी, पेरेंट चाहेगा कि हमारा बच्चा अगर पढ़ रहा है तो इंस्टेंटली जो है उसको भी नौकरी मिल जाए, कहीं ऐसी जगह पढ़े नौकरी मिल जाए. सो इफ यू नोटिस, the catchword for a lot of private university was placement. हमारा 100% placement है. तो जो 100% placement है ना, वो इंजीनियरिंग में वर्क हो सकता है, वो MBA में वर्क हो सकता है. But as I said, media industry, first of all, I think it grew. There was a time when satellite channels came in, a lot of big investment were made in the satellite TV business, and accordingly, big papers came. But now things are in the hands of people. You can just make an app, and you can just put up a small studio in a house, and from there you can be transmitting news, and that news can be going through the mobile app. So in each and everybody, you can start a YouTube channel that could be disseminating news. Like, for example, I love to watch Al Jazeera. I'm just watching it on YouTube, and it is free. So what I'm trying to say here is that somewhere the media industry is going to change in a big way. And honestly, we are getting into a phase where there are a lot of non-qualified. They could be non-qualified, but they are highly skilled. For example, there are a lot of people who are learning through digitally, they are learning it, and they are actually 10 times better than people who are coming out from institutes. There are a lot of YouTubers who learn editing via YouTube only, and they are doing 10 times much better job than a student from an institute would do. And they are doing that. So somewhere I feel मतलब एक जमाना था जब शाहरुख खान और आयुष्मान खुराना को देख के लोग पढ़ते थे, वो एक तो था कि आप क्लूलेस थे. पर अब तो और सिचुएशन खराब हो गई है. अब तो मतलब मीडिया इंडस्ट्री, आयुष्मान खुराना को छोड़ दीजिए, मीडिया इंडस्ट्री ही इतनी बदल चुकी है, और आपका डायरेक्ट कंपटीशन जो है ऐसे लोगों के साथ है जो मे बी इंजीनियरिंग की पढ़ाई कर चुके थे या डॉक्टर थे, पर उनको अब उसमें दिल नहीं लगता है, उन्होंने ऑनलाइन ही जो है सारी चीजें सीख ली. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यू लुक एट this Gaurav, you look at the vlogger Gaurav Tareja. He's an IIT pass out. He was a pilot, but today he earns his bread and butter through vlogging. He edits. He keeps showing. He does his own edit. He has got free YouTube channels. So at the end of the day, now people who are not passed out, who haven't passed out from media institutes, they are learning it because they have the talent. So honestly speaking, uh, you know, students who are studying in private institutes, they need to think 10 times before deciding, like, why are they studying media and where do they want to see themselves after they pass out from the institute.
Great, great. That's again a very, very well, valuable answer. My next question pertains to online media. Now, when we started journalism, like I started journalism or advertising, so there were only advertising, journalism, and radio, and new media was just cropping. So, do you think new media, basically YouTube or other social media, it's a threat to serious journalism? Because if a serious news comes in the newspaper and people want to read that, they have to wait for 24 hours or they have to wait for the next day's newspaper. It's very easy for somebody to just post something on Facebook and create a small clip on YouTube and have a very tacky or a very normal thumbnail on YouTube and get viewers, and viewers consume that particular information. So serious journalism, serious news, in this case, whether fake news is getting more circulated than serious news, and is it due to the new media, the media of internet? How do you take this? Your comments on this, please.
Absolutely, very important question, and you are bang on. You are very correct. See, what happens is this, that news is a very serious business, and news is very sacrosanct. Please mark my word, it's sacrosanct. You Yes, we are at a time when we see a lot of colored news. News that has been colored. That has a certain motive and an agenda, and we see that news quite a lot in Indian television these days. But honestly, news making is a very serious business, and I sincerely believe that if you truly want to be a journalist, it is no matter whether you are trained or untrained, or whether you have come from Jamia or you have not come from Jamia, or whether you have come from a private university, it is very important to aspire to work for a big publication house or a big channel, and also very clear, because we are at a time when there is, as I said, I mean there are a lot of agendas. A lot of media houses are driven by certain agendas. So I think it's very important to know that where I am going, and who is my reporting, in corporate world we call it reporting manager. In editorial language we call it, I who's the editor to whom he or she is reporting, and or the reporter to him he or she is reporting. And I think it's very important to see the body of work of, like, the editor to whom he or she is reporting, and whether he or she is going to learn or not. Because trust me, news making, news writing, news reading is a very sacrosanct business, and it's very pious, and one need it's an art that can only learn after many years of hard work. And somewhere, relating it to the question of new age media, it's, as you said, I mean, there are pros and cons of everything. So, when media gives you, when internet technology gives you the option of easy access to telling the world what you think, it's very easy to camouflage it as news, but it may not be news. It could be a certain narrative, colored narrative that you are trying to propagate. So yes, all these new age channels, it's a mixed world. So it's a mixed world. So you have big channels, big production houses who have taken the route of new age media to actually reach to a larger audience. And secondly, there are also a lot of, what should I say, not authentic media houses who are trying to be in this business and, drive a certain narrative. So it's very important to be able to discriminate, to distinguish, what is correct and what is wrong. But I sincerely feel news making is sacrosanct, and it is advisable. Any student who is passed out starts his career from a brand which has a legacy, or at least has a name of doing serious journalism.
Okay. My next question is a little bit in terms of money. So, any profession that you are in, at the end of the day, I understand that money is not everything, but you need money for everything. So, if a person wants to be a journalist, say if we break it down to the first 3 years, then we break it down to the next 2 years, so completing 5 years. How much can a person or a student? How much should he expect that he will earn in the first year, second year, third year, or fourth year, fifth year, and how his career can progress, like not only in the field of journalism, but in other fields like advertising, radio, PR, online media. So if we can talk a little bit about in terms of how much money can a person earn here in this particular field.
I'll be frank. I mean, the beginning in the media industry is not very monetarily lucrative. It involves a lot of hard work. I'll tell you why. Because and I'd like to say this in Hindi, मीडिया जो है ना, ये कला है. आपको वो कला आपको उस कला में माहिर होना पड़ेगा. You have to become an artist. You have to learn the art and become an artist. जैसे कि एक नया एक एक्टर जब आता है, तो ऑल्दो उसके अंदर टैलेंट होगा, पर वो बहुत ज्यादा पैसे कमांड नहीं कर सकता एक फिल्म का. पर जब वो अपने आप को एस्टेब्लिश कर लेता है, जब दुनिया को यकीन हो जाता है कि ये बंदा जो है, मतलब ये जो एक्टर है, ये जो भी एक्टिंग करता है, ये सिलेबल है, इसमें दम है, ये सीखा हुआ मंझा हुआ एक्टर है जिसको हम बोलते हैं, ये मंझा हुआ आर्टिस्ट है, तब वो आदमी अपना अपना मतलब मन चाहा जो प्राइस है वो कोट कर सकता है. I mean, I would like to give here an example. And I had heard this from somebody that, Salim Saab, in the sense that Salman Khan's father, Salim Khan, he got into writing. So he had spoken to Abrar Alvi that, why are writers not paid much? So then he always had this question. So when he tied up with Javed Akhtar, Mr. Javed Akhtar, so, they, after their initial struggles, when they had established themselves as writers who could give a sure shot hit, a story which is a sure shot hit, they went to the extent of commanding, price which is which is very high. And if you just Google the interviews of Mr. Javed Akhtar and Mr. Salim Khan on YouTube, they will tell you their experiences of how much they charge for one script, how much they charge for the second script, and how much they charge for Divar, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say here is that media एक कला है. जब you will have to establish yourself, unless you see. I will not like to put a price. I mean, initially, maybe in public relations, the starting. I mean, if you're interning, then maybe 10, 15,000. I'm just giving a ballpark figure. Interning, you're a management trainee, and then your first job as an executive, you may get 25,000, 20 to 25,000. And then but then by the time you have spent 2 years in the field, now you know the people. Now you know that what is strategy, how to make plan, and at least you may not know completely, but you have an idea. So now when you are going for an interview, it is all about how effectively you can sell yourself. You are an you are in the HR sector, not everybody, unlike a government job, not everybody is paid the same salary. I mean, it is a matter of how effectively you can sell yourself. So, what I all I would like to say here is that, as I said, I mean, you first have to deserve before you desire. So, if you have it in you to be in media, then trust me, in a very short span, you can earn very well, provided you have the talent to command that salary.
I completely agree with you, sir, because I'll just share my experience. So my first internship was with Ogilvy and Mather, world-renowned advertising agency. I did not get a penny. Second was with Red FM. Everybody knows what's Red FM. I did not get a penny. After that, it was with Hindustan Times, like Calcutta, a brief internship, and I got 3,000 for that. So it took me quite a lot of time to establish myself, and I also tell my juniors that मीडिया एक कला है, पहले आप सीखोगे, उसके बाद पैसा डेफिनेटली आएगा. So
उसके बाद पैसा डेफिनेटली आएगा, पर आपको पहले काम सीखना पड़ेगा.
जी,
मतलब काम आना चाहिए.
Absolutely.
Again, one quote that I would like to, because I am very inspired by Bollywood and the art, different good works that done by different artists in Bollywood. So, so there's a filmmaker who made this Hazaron Khwaishein Aisi. सुधीर, उनका नाम क्या है? सुधीर चौधरी, पता नहीं मेरे नाम. हजारों ख्वाहिशें की जो फिल्म है, उसके जो डायरेक्टर है, उन्होंने एक बार एक टीवी शो में कहा था कि जब मिस्टर जावेद अख्तर ने फरहान अख्तर की जो पहली फिल्म है दिल चाहता है देखी थी, तो उन्होंने पूरी फिल्म देखने के बाद एक ही लाइन कहा कि मेरे बेटे को काम आता है. तो काम आना पड़ेगा, उसके पहले काम सीखना पड़ेगा, काम सीखने के बाद आपको काम आना चाहिए. एक बार काम आ जाएगा ना, तो खुद ब खुद पैसा आएगा.
बिल्कुल, absolutely. Thumbnail is, like paisa aa hi jayega. So next question that I want to ask is, like you have been a journalist for a long time, for many years, and after that, currently you are working as a senior consultant in a public relations firm. So if we compare journalism versus public relations, this is a question that saunters in the minds of almost every journalism or every mass communication student. Should we choose journalism as a specialization, or should we choose public relations as a specialization? Because people are not clear how that career path can be, what they can do. So if you can reflect a little bit on journalism versus public relations, what is the major difference and what are the similarities in it?
Yeah, so just referring to the director's name is Sudhir Mishra. I was not, I forgot the surname. So coming to your question, Mirza, as I said, both are very different, but then journalism, honestly, I always tell the younger generation to consider journalism as something very idealistic. You are somewhere doing a justice to the society. I mean, somewhere you need to do justice to the profession. People are reading you. You have a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder. You are telling the truth. What is the truth? And सच्चाई को आप बयां कर रहे हैं. So you need to have a certain passion. You need to have the skill to tell story. You need to be either your writing skills have to be very good. Whether you write in English or Hindi or Urdu or regional language, you should have good command over grammar, so that your script is good, your article is good, your command over language should be good. So, so what I'm saying is that journalism is actually should not be seen, should not be weighed monetarily. It is more of like serving the nation, and only who has the talent to tell a story, who has command over language, and who has the passion to be in journalism and showcase a certain perspective. Only they should get into journalism. And after spending certain years in journalism, like, there are people who, get, you know, personally, I mean, I got a little tired of the changing dynamics of journalism. Like, journalism was, because I was all throughout the print journalist, from the print media, writing for the regular newspaper. So from there, I had to, like, from there was a shift to online, and every day, it was not just about giving stories every day, but, now the trend is, how many stories are you giving in a day? So, so somewhere I felt like, it was not suiting my temperament. So that is why I actually wanted to shift to public relations, which is business driven. Public relation is a very is a very clear agenda that, you are being paid by an ex brand or an ex entity to handle their communication, and it is your responsibility to effectively showcase the brand or the entity in front of the public through the media. So there has to be clear purpose. There has to be a clear agenda on what is the budget being given by the company, what are the deliverables, and what would be the return on investment. What is the ROI? So it is PR is a very corporate oriented and a very business oriented thing, where there is a set agenda, and it is driven driven by a lot of factors. So that's the clear distinction between PR and journalism. And one could switch. I mean, generally journalists switches a lot of journalists after certain years switch to PR.
Yeah.
But somebody who is into PR and all throughout has been in PR,
Mhm.
they generally grow up, and they join as corporate communication professionals in different in different brands,
Right.
in different corporate houses.
So my next question to you is a little bit in terms of politics. So a lot of my friends, they keep asking me that are journalists bought, or are media channels really bought by political parties to promote them and to show their image in a better light? So is journalism or are journalists politically biased because they are getting funded by them? I know it's a very serious question, but again, we would really love to hear from you, your comments on this.
See, I mean, honestly, it's a very stereotypical question. Like, कि मतलब, it's very stereotypical. This whole statement is very biased because, मतलब, हाँ, you know, just one fish cannot define the quality and the nature of all, the entire fish in the pond. So, as I said, it's India. The best part about India is that it's a democratic country. It's competitive. There are all kinds of people. There are all kinds of business houses. At the end of the day, there are big brands working in the media sector. They have made investments, and sometimes I definitely will not deny and disagree that there sometimes certain organizations, they have certain agendas, and like, accordingly, they give a certain directive, like in that, what should be the narrative, and they have to toe the line in regards to that narrative. But again, that is in regards to only opinion building programs, and this is also mostly relating to uh, electronic media, when it comes to, and also could be regarding video digital media. But as long as it is writing, I still feel in India, writings are writing is something that is very factual based in India. Whatever, whether it's the print, whether it's the online media houses or the traditional print houses, like, news is presented as news these days. Still, in today's date, news is presented as news, and honestly, the opinion pages, the opinion articles that you see, they are still written by the doyens of different sectors, and they have a certain brand name to meet to, because unlike TV channels where it's all about numbers, it is all about TRP, and you have mouthpieces, and you have spokesperson of different political parties who come and
Right.
shout.
Right.
Unlike that, in a newspaper, in an opinion section, you will only have section like domain expert with expertise writing articles. They are not uh, mouthpieces of different spokesperson of different political parties. And also, what happens in today's date also, if you because unlike television, newspaper or even online is always there. It is dated. Once something is printed, it is there. So you cannot just bluff facts. Your whatever you're writing, it stays forever. So one has to be always. It's very sacrosanct, and one has to be very particular and clear, and double check before writing a statement or a line, even today, whether it's online or newspaper. So I would say that yes, there are elements, there are different there are different sections, but I think as long as we talk of written stories, whether it's print or online, it's something that it's very difficult to make it colored. वो टेक्निकली बहुत डिफिकल्ट है बिकॉज आप फैक्ट्स गलत नहीं लिख सकते आपने एक बार गलत फैक्ट्स लिख दिया अगले दिन आपको कोरिजेंडम निकालना पड़ेगा
जी correct right so when we were growing up in school we were told by our teachers to watch English news channels so that because it helps in vocabulary learning more and more vocabulary because journalists that time we were given the example of Arnab Goswami, Rajdeep Sardesai, then Barkha Dutt, and there were many similar journalists. And our parents also, they advised us to watch more of English news channels. Seeing the scenario today, would you advise your child to watch news channels more and more, be it for learning vocabulary or for any other reasons? Or do you think that the debates that happen today on news channels, uh, they are actually not contributing positively, but they have a negative effect on children?
there's a I have a I have a little different perspective on this. If you have to watch if you are being told to watch channels just to improve your vocabulary and English, then I would tell the younger generation to watch BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, and other international channels because it is their language. English is not our mother tongue. English is is more of inherited. We have inherited English, and it is not our mother tongue, and we are bound to make mistakes whether when we write in English or speak in English. We tend to make errors. It's something that is not ingrained in us. So I would always tell the younger generation that if you have to watch a certain program to learn the language, you better watch it from the horse's mouth. And yes, the second part brings me to the second part that uh, we are at a time when television news is going through, what should I say, a very experimental phase, because there's colored news and there is. I personally like to stick to a very age-old private channel, satellite channel. I would not like to take any names here. But yes, I mean, as somebody who is from the old school journalism, who believes in old school journalism, I somehow don't appreciate the debate style of most of the debate style that you see in most of the TV channels.
That's really bang on, and that's really well articulated, and it says a lot, about today's scenario of the media channels, what we hear in the media channels. I have one last question, and all these questions that were asked before that were more of a little bit of serious note. Now I want to ask, how do journalists enjoy their life? Because 24 into 7 into 365, they are on their toes. They are getting news, they're collecting news, they're packaging the news and showcasing it to the viewers. How do journalists or, any, for that matter, any media professional, any communication professionals, what are the best ways they enjoy?
Yeah, so the good part about journalism and PR is that you are I mean, pandemic is a different thing that, mostly we have been restricted to homes, and it's virtual press conferences and, virtual meetings that are happening. But whether you are a journalist or you are a PR, if, as long as you are dealing with brands, these press meets happen in five-star hotels. So obviously you get to go to these five-star hotels. I mean, I am a foodie, so I tend to look at, I'm a foodie and I like traveling, so I can only talk about things that that still makes me excited about this profession. And it is, one is traveling and one is food. So one part about journalism is this, that the press, after the press meets, you get to eat good food. And also, when you are a journalist, you get to travel the length and breadth of the country. Even when you are a communication professional, you are traveling the length and the breadth of the country, for different press conferences. And so traveling is something that that is a part and parcel of this job, and that helps you to reach out. And obviously, press club is a culture that exists in all the cities of India. So, like, a lot of the journalists, they become members of press club. And वहाँ भी जाके फिर वही खाना पीना होता है, बातचीत होती है. So, and obviously, media people, communication professionals like to talk a lot. So that is how they generally chill. Also, eventually, a lot of journalists, they turn into authors also. So a lot of them read books, and so reading book is also very integral, because our discussion has mostly been from education perspective, from, as you say, from classroom to cubicle. But reading book is also very integral to becoming a good communications professional. Even if you don't have the habit of reading, at least, like, one should read journals, magazines, and at least, as I said, I mean, I had this. I'm not a I'm not a voracious reader, so I have always stuck to watching a lot of news channels from foreign countries.
So I have, like the questions that I had collected from various people, which they wanted to, seek answers from a senior consultant or a senior communications professionals. I would request you for a closing address, which can be a little bit on new freshers, some people who are just 1 or 2 years in the industry and they want to make big in the industry. And 20 years back, if you go back 20 years back when you were probably in the last years of your school or maybe in college, uh, would you, seeing the current scenario or wherever you are right now as a senior consultant communications professional, if given a chance, would you make any changes or amendments in your life as a communications professional if given a chance?
So, Mirza, Mirza, one only thing that I wish I would have done well is this, that because honestly, most of us, we, we speak Indian English, which is very colloquial, and there is a sea difference between what you write, the written English and spoken English. And the problem is that a lot of the younger generation who are coming into this profession, they do not know the difference between spoken English and written English. The command of a grammar is weak. I'm not talking about everyone, but at least my grammar was very weak. My English grammar was very weak, and it actually took me almost 10 years to at least reach 10 years of working to reach a point where I am confident of what I'm writing. So I think one thing that I would have definitely one thing different that if I could have done was that, had I perfected my written English skills when I was in school. And that is something that I would like to tell everybody, to understand the difference between spoken English, what is colloquial, and what is written. And there is a method to writing. What is the method to writing? The nuances of English grammar. These are certain things that I would tell people to learn to perfect. And something that I wish I could have. If I could have done maybe I could have been a little ahead where I am today.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving your time. I understand, as a senior consultant, you have been working a few minutes back as well. So your time is very precious, and I'm really glad that you could make it and give me 1 hour of your precious time. I'm sure these answers will be helpful for many people, not only the people who are in school right now or in college and are pursuing education, but of course those who are already into the industry and were looking to make a career switch or make a career jump somehow. This will definitely help them up. Thank you so much, sir. And I hope all the viewers who have been watching this video will be benefited through it.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.